I had exactly $312,480 sitting in the escrow account the morning my parents told the court I was an unfit mother. My son Declan was 4 years old, sitting on the living room floor of our small house in Clintonville building a crooked tower out of wooden blocks while humming a tune he'd heard on a fire truck video. Across the room, the envelope sat on the coffee table. Certified mail. Franklin County Court of Common Pleas. Inside it was a custody petition filed by my parents, Howard and Patricia Knowles, asking the court to grant them full legal guardianship of my son. The reason they wrote in the affidavit was simple and cold: emotional instability following prolonged grief. According to them, I was too broken to raise my own child. What they didn't know was that the envelope they sent arrived the same morning I received something else. A small padded package from a Columbus law office I didn't recognize. Inside it was a USB drive and a single printed note. The note said only one sentence: check the timestamps before you respond. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the flash drive while Declan laughed in the other room. Because if what I suspected was true, the people trying to take my son away were about to walk straight into a courtroom carrying lies that could be dismantled line by line. And once the evidence was placed on record, they wouldn't just lose the custody case. They would lose something else: their credibility, their control, and the story they had been telling everyone about why their daughter cut them out. I closed my laptop slowly. Then I picked up the phone and called the number printed at the bottom of the note. The voice that answered was calm. Law Office of Daniel Harper. I swallowed once. Hi, my name is Evelyn Brennan. There was a short pause. Then he said quietly, I was hoping you'd call. That was the moment I realized something important. Someone else had been watching this unfold. Someone who knew exactly what my parents had been doing behind the scenes. And they had decided it was time for the truth to come out. But to understand why my parents thought they could take my child in the first place, you have to understand the history that led to that courtroom. You have to understand the pattern. Because the custody petition wasn't the first time my family had decided my life belonged to them. It was just the first time I was ready to stop them. Let me take you back. For years earlier, my life looked completely different. In early 2021, my husband Sean and I lived in a tiny second-floor apartment on Indianola Avenue in Columbus. The kitchen was so narrow we couldn't stand in it together without bumping elbows. The living room window overlooked a crack parking lot, and the rent was $1,150 a month. But it was ours. Sean worked at Columbus Fire Station 19, 24-hour shifts. He'd come home smelling like smoke and diesel fuel and collapse on the couch while I pretended to complain. I was working as a physical therapist at a private clinic called Renewal Physical Therapy. We weren't rich, but we were building something steady, and I was 34 weeks pregnant. We had already painted the second bedroom pale gray. Sean had found a secondhand crib on Facebook Marketplace for $75 and spent an entire Saturday sanding it smooth and repainting it. One night, he rested his hand on my stomach and said, "This kid's going to have the best mom." I laughed. "I'm going to be exhausted. You'll still be the best." That was Sean, always calm, always grounding me. He was also the first person who noticed something about my family that I spent years ignoring. They expected me to give everything, and never expected my brother Garrett to give anything. Garrett was the golden child, 5 years older, sales manager at a car dealership. Nice car, nice house, 2 kids. My parents treated his occasional phone calls like heroic acts. Meanwhile, I was the daughter who showed up, the daughter who drove across town when something broke, the daughter who stayed overnight when someone needed help. When my mother had hip replacement surgery in 2018, that role became permanent. What was supposed to be 6 weeks of recovery turned into 18 months. I slept on their couch, drove her to physical therapy 3 times a week, changed surgical bandages, helped her shower. I even reduced my clinic hours, losing $1,400 a month, so I could take care of her. Garrett visited 3 times. My parents still called him thoughtful. Sean drove my mother to appointments when I couldn't. 9 times. He never complained. My mother used to bake him cookies and say, "You're a good man." Then in March 2021, everything shattered. Sean left for his shift at 6:15 in the evening. At 8:45, my phone rang. A truck had run a red light. He died at the hospital before I arrived. Less than 4 hours later, I went into labor. At 2:07 a.m., I called my mother from the delivery room. "Mom, Sean's gone. I'm in labor. I need you." She paused. Then she said something that rewrote my understanding of family forever. We're at the airport with Garrett. His promotion trip. Hawaii can't wait. Then she hung up. A nurse named Barbara held my hand through the entire delivery. Declan was born at 6:23 a.m. 5 pounds 9 ounces. Premature, but breathing. My parents stayed in Hawaii. They didn't attend Sean's funeral. After that, I stopped responding. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. Over the next 4 years, I rebuilt my life. I bought a modest 3-bedroom house with the insurance money from Sean's line-of-duty death benefit. $285,000. Small yard. Big oak tree. I raised Declan. Went to therapy. Passed my OCS certification exam. Built a new kind of family with the people who actually showed up. Barbara. My friend Meredith. Chief Morrison from the fire department. Neighbors who became grandparents in every way that mattered. For 4 years my parents said nothing meaningful. Then Garrett's life collapsed. Affair. Divorce. Job loss. Suddenly my parents started calling again. And when I didn't respond, they escalated. First came letters saying Declan deserved to know his grandparents. Then came accusations that I was emotionally unstable. Then came the court filing. Custody petition. Guardianship request. That's when the USB drive arrived. When I opened it that morning, the contents explained everything. Inside were metadata records, call logs, and email timestamps tied to my parents' custody filing. Attorney Daniel Harper explained it during our meeting later that afternoon. He slid a folder across the table and said calmly, "Your parents filed sworn affidavits stating they attempted contact for years and you refused access to your child." I nodded. "That's not true." "I know," he said. Then he tapped the folder. The metadata shows those emails were created 2 days before they filed the petition, meaning they had manufactured a record. Fabricated communication. Attempted to build a legal narrative. It also contained something else. A witness statement. From someone I hadn't expected. Garrett's ex-wife. Amanda. She had provided screenshots showing my parents discussing the custody strategy months earlier. Their plan was simple. Convince the court I was emotionally unstable. Gain guardianship. Then Garrett could move into my house while helping raise Declan. It was all written in casual emails they thought no one else would see. Daniel Harper leaned back and said quietly, "This isn't revenge. This is justice." The hearing was scheduled for February. Franklin County Courthouse. Family division. My parents arrived confident. Garrett sat behind them. The courtroom was quiet except for the sound of papers shuffling. Their attorney spoke first. He described me as isolated, overwhelmed, grieving. Then my attorney stood. He introduced the forensic email analysis, the fabricated communication timeline, the metadata showing the documents had been created days before filing. Then he submitted Amanda's affidavit. And finally, he played a voicemail Garrett had left her months earlier. In it, Garrett said, "Once Mom gets guardianship, we can move into the house and stabilize things." The courtroom went silent. The judge removed his glasses. He read through the forensic audit slowly. Then he looked directly at my parents. Submitting falsified statements to this court is extremely serious. Their petition was dismissed immediately. The judge ordered the case referred for further review regarding fraudulent filings. My parents walked out of the courtroom without looking at me. Garrett avoided my eyes completely. I drove home that afternoon and sat on the porch watching Declan chase bubbles across the yard. For the first time since Sean died, the weight in my chest felt lighter. Not because I had defeated them, because the truth had finally been spoken in a place where it mattered. 1 year later, life is quieter. Declan started kindergarten. He still loves fire trucks. Chief Morrison taught him how to polish the chrome on engine 19 during a station visit. Barbara comes over every Sunday afternoon. Meredith still brings terrible wine. As for my parents, we haven't spoken, but I don't carry anger anymore. Just boundaries and clarity, because family isn't defined by who shares your DNA. It's defined by who shows up when the world falls apart. If you've ever been the one who always gave everything to people who only remembered you when they needed something, I hope this story reminds you of one thing. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to protect your peace. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let the truth speak for itself. If this story resonated with you, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever drawn a boundary that changed your life, I'd love to hear about it.